Today, Chris Buchanan, the founder of Goodonya, joins me for this conversation. Chris, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Super fun to see you through the computer, at least.
Yeah, it is. Can you share a little bit about Goodonya, why you started this restaurant, and then what some of your offerings are?
Sure. We started in 2001, which a lot of people are really always surprised to hear. We started as Goodonya Deli. And that was the reason to do that back then was my whole mission back then was local. We had this tiny little 1,000 square foot place. And so we thought, well, let's find all the best local vendors in San Diego and then highlight them to our guests because we can't make everything in this little space. So we kind of came to it backwards. And then this was before local was even a cool word. So yeah, that's how we started as a little deli, and I grew that chain to 5 deli locations, and they were all Monday through Friday office park little gigs. And over the years, I have sold or closed those, and now we just have Goodonya full service restaurant in Encinitas.
Okay. And
Yeah.
what,
And why?
well,
Why did I start it? Yeah, I don't know why. Don't ever start a restaurant. It's not for the faint of heart. The industry is really, really brutal. It's a tough one. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I've heard. So what's on your menu at Goodonya?
So we do things very different than a normal restaurant. And people ask us all the time, oh, please open in Austin, open in Seattle, like all the visitors that we get. And it's not really scalable. It could be maybe at a small version, but since this is 5 minutes from my house and I can't cook, everything is on the menu that I want. So I'm really an ingredient expert. I'm not a chef. And so I like to think of it as approachable food. It's everything that we know and love, but in good for you versions. We have a soda that's made with sparkling water, sparkling mineral water. We're not into tap water either. It goes down to the water. And then it's with chaga mushrooms and herbs. And it tastes literally like A&W soda, like that we grew up with, but there's no sugar and it's actually good for your immune system. So I want the things that I want, and I want them to be good for me now. So that's what we do: burgers, salads, wraps, chicken, fish. I mean, we have a massive menu: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So yeah, it's hard to what don't we have?
Okay, so this already diverges into two paths. So one is talking about the adaptogens that you incorporate into your foods or into your menu. And then the second one is talking about the different labels that you use. Maybe to begin with, if we could talk about the labels, so that certified organic and the whole thing, wild caught,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah. So in a restaurant, you can have I think there's 1 or 2 certified organic restaurants sort of anywhere. One's like a chicken place, and they're like an In-N-Out, but they just have chicken, right? So they've got like 3 or 4 menu items, or probably a few more than that. So they actually got their whole restaurant certified. We have probably over 500 different ingredients. So it would be just impossible to do it. But I don't need anyone's certification because I trust myself. So I know what's every single ingredient is in there. So everything that is organic that we can get certified organic, actually certified, we do get certified organic. And if we're using a very small vendor who's not certified yet, but they are using organic ingredients, I will actually look at their invoices to make sure they are purchasing those organic ingredients to make the stuff that we're buying from them. So I just go to that extra length because I don't want to not support the smaller vendors, the local vendors who can't afford that certification. So for me, really, it's about organic is just a starting point. But we use wild seafood. You can't certify seafood organic. So you always want to look for wild seafood. And then right now, actually, to be honest, we're moving beyond organic into regenerative and biodynamic. I mean, we already have regenerative chicken, ham, and sausage, which I can't even tell you. There's probably one restaurant in the whole world. Let's just say there's a few, just to be generous, who have organic ingredients consistently. To have regenerative ingredients in a restaurant just not being done anywhere. So it's really exciting for me to move beyond that because regenerative agriculture, even raising farm stock in a regenerative way, actually sequesters carbon and puts it back into the soil and is healing to the environment. So it's a big topic when you get into, global warming and veganism and all those kind of arguments that we get into. But yeah, regenerative and biodynamic is the way we're heading.
Okay. Can you share a little bit more about what each of those terms mean?
Sure. Yeah. I live in this sometimes, so I forget. Think of, factory farming is really the worst of the worst. The animals are abused. They're given food that they're not meant to eat. They're in warehouses. It is like the exact opposite of what we should be doing on a moral, a social, environmental level, everything, everyone from the animal to the workers to the end consumer. It's an unhealthy product. It's really, really sad. And that's where the passion, I think, for a lot of people comes around choosing to be plant-based. But regenerative agriculture, and it can happen with animals, it can happen with our wine that we do, it can happen with any produce, anything you grow. When you factory farm, you ruin the environment around you. You ruin the waterways, you ruin the soil, you just ruin it. You ruin the air, and it's devastating to our planet. All right. Then you have conventional farming, and also the next thing would be GMO farming, right? So if you're going to do tons of plots of, let's say, GMO corn and soy, these are what are called monocrops. They're soaked in pesticides. They ruin the microbiome of the soil. And then what do you think that does to our guts? Ruins our health as well. So you have factory farming and GMO farming kind of at the worst end. And then you just jump up to regular old pesticide farming. That's called conventional. And that's what we kind of grew up with all the way until 96 when they started doing GMOs. Okay. And then people started going, wow, this is really horrible. And around 2000, even a little bit later, is when the organic movement started. And really, it's only 2020, right? It's crazy. Goodonya started and has grown up sort of in this industry. And I've kind of learned all this stuff as I've gone along. So you now are back to just regular old pesticides, and they can do monocrops and they can even do rotating crops and stuff, but you're still dousing it with pesticides, things like Roundup. Now, next level would be organic, right? So you're not using petroleum-based and toxic pesticides. You are allowed to use some things that are in the organic standard, so they're more natural-based. But you can also have monocrops of organic things that that's not necessarily great for the soil, because you're not, the traditional way is to cross rotate crops to bring diversity to the soil. They're not doing that. They're just every year growing and growing and growing the same old thing. So people now are like, okay, what do we do? So they're going, now the new thing is regenerative farming. And you can Google it and find different people talking about it. But in general, it's basically you're regenerating the soil, the health of the soil. So your food's healthy, so you're healthy. It is as simple as that. There's another layer with biodynamic, and that's Rudolf Steiner, who started Waldorf schools. He coined the phrase, and I don't know exactly all of it, but from what I understand, there's a little bit more in tune with nature, and there's a few rituals and sort of blessings that the farmers do that are kind of ancient traditions. Things like they pack the hooves of a goat or cow with like manure, and then they bury that and they say a blessing. They do that. But on a certified biodynamic farm, you can't even have WD-40 in your shed. It is a whole natural ecosystem. And the certification that these farmers get for biodynamic is even beyond what regenerative is doing. And it's not just about the blessing with the cow hooves. They really learn how to, when certain food, I mean, I'm not a farmer, but there's moon cycles and lunar cycles or whatever, right? And they're supposed to be picking at this time where the food it's growing, so you don't pick, but then it's ready to be picked. And there's all these cycles in nature. Is how people learn to farm in tune with nature thousands of years ago. So to me, the highest level right now we can do is biodynamic. And there's a Demeter certification. You can see the little logo, and that's what it'll look like. But quite honestly, it's extremely rare to find certified biodynamic food right now.
Okay. And
so that's a lot, I know, but that's sort of the run of the certifications and labels.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for going into each one of those. And still, even though it's rare, you've found farmers that you can partner with who offer biodynamic ingredients.
Yeah.
Foods. Okay.
Yeah, most of the wine we get, we've got a massive wine selection. We have a wine club that we ship anywhere in California. Most of that wine is certified biodynamic, so that's really exciting to us. And then we do have regenerative sausage, regenerative ham, and regenerative turkey from small family farmers and farms that I know the owners. The owners eat at my restaurant. So these are relationships that we've developed just by being in the industry and making it happen, to be quite honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Going off into the wine club a little bit more. So this opens up a whole can of worms from residual sugars to residual sulfite levels or contained sugars and residual sulfite levels and just everything else. What specifically are you looking for in the wines that you offer?
Yeah. So when we decided to do dinner, because I used to just do breakfast and lunch. So then I was like, well, I need to get my beer and wine license. People want to have a glass of wine with dinner. So we did that. And then I had to jump in and learn about wine. Because if I'm going to put wine in my restaurant, it's got to be something that I can stand behind. I never want anyone to eat in our place and leave feeling bad. I
Yeah.
want them to feel good. And our customers over the years kept saying, God, I just eat here and I feel so good after. And I realized that was, the cooking oils that we use and the organic food. And of course they feel good, right? And now feel good has kind of become our thing. So I dove in and learned about wine, and wow, it is a beautiful expression of nature, or it is an absolute toxic, similar to a factory farm experience. And it runs the gamut. And what I've learned, it has absolutely nothing to do with the price of the bottle. And wine is a very pretentious, snobby. They have that sort of vibe around them sometimes. But yeah, it's got nothing to do with the price. You can literally have a bottle of wine that has 100 grams of sugar in it, or you can have a bottle of wine with zero residual sugar in it, and you don't know because it's not labeled, and probably it will never be labeled because the alcohol lobbyist industry is very strong. So you're never going to buy a bottle with 100 grams of sugar. Well, some people probably would, but yeah, this is too much, and that's why you feel bad. And there's a whole reason I can go into if you want why those 100 gram of sugar bottles are so toxic. But it is really a bummer with the labeling that you just don't know. So if you're out there in the world and you're looking for natural wines, when you say food and you want natural food, that doesn't exist anymore. The word natural and food don't go together. Organic is your starting place. There is no natural food. Anytime someone says something's natural, unfortunately, they ruin the word. But in wine, that is the classification of wine. So if you go into a wine shop, ask for the person who knows the most about wine and say, hey, do you have any natural wines? Then they'll know what you're talking about. And you can look for the back of the bottle to see if any are biodynamic. Sometimes the wine buyers don't even know what that means, but their little Demeter logo that we can maybe put up to let people see that. And then you're going to be safe. Another phrase you could use are old world wines. And these are wines coming obviously from Europe. And over there, they didn't grow up with pesticides and fertilizers and the stuff called mega purple that adds sugar to the wine and chemical solvents. And they didn't do that, right? They have these ancient traditions that they pass down. Sometimes vineyards that we're supporting are 6th generation vineyards. They don't want to spend the money on all that stuff. So they know how to grow their grapes so strong. These grapes are, here's what happens when you have a really processed bottle of wine. You irrigate it, you grow it right in the ground, and then you give it tons of water, and you give it fertilizer, and you give it pesticides to keep all the things off, and you get that grape to be really, really big, and it's kind of flavorless, but it's big and it produces a lot of water, a lot of volume, but it doesn't taste like anything. So then they add what's called mega purple to the fermentation to sweeten it up and give it some flavor. Well, if you add that in the fermentation, you need to add chemical stabilizers because that's how it keeps the sugars going. Now, that grape that grew when you just gave everything to it, that little grape didn't struggle, on its own and get to be a strong little grape. He has no antioxidants. He's just a bag of nothing. So they have to add a ton of sulfites to preserve it because it's not a strong product. So now you have pesticides in the growing, herbicides, and and then the sugar, and then the sulfites. It is a toxic chemical mess in a bottle. Could be $100 a bottle, could be $500 a bottle, could be $2.99. That's the kooky thing. That's what I don't understand about wine pricing at all. But we do the due diligence and actually talk to the winemakers and the farms and the wine reps and really get to the bottom of how it's grown and what they do or do not add to it. So sometimes people think they're allergic to sulfites. Well, there are sulfites naturally occurring in lots of food, and that is true for people. I actually have a sulfite issue genetically in my body where I can't clear sulfur. And I got genetically tested. My estrogen was really high. So when you can't clear your sulfur out of your body, your estrogen pathway gets blocked, and it's crazy. But I went to a genetic specialist, and I take manganese, and that helps. So she created a supplement just for these types of people that have this issue, because her husband had it and wouldn't stop drinking wine. So she created a thing called Sulfite X, which like crosses all the sulfites. But there was a lot of sulfite rich foods, which I didn't do well with either. So I had completely stopped drinking wine. But it's really, a biodynamic bottle of wine is allowed to have 100 parts per million sulfites added. So that's very little, and it's a little bit just to preserve it. The bottle that I described earlier, the toxic bottle, that could have 10,000, 20,000 parts per million. Organic wine, if it's USDA certified organic wine with the logo, by definition, you are not allowed to add sulfites. And this is why a lot of people think organic wine isn't that good, because you need a little bit to preserve it in the fermentation. Okay. Very little bit, especially when you're transporting, I think, these things from Europe to America. That's my theory. But so that's a little bit of a bad rap, that organic wines kind of taste like crap. It tastes too young. Yeah. And that's why. So, but there are organic USC organic vineyards here in America that have figured it out and are doing it a lot better now.
Okay, because I had a question about that, because I thought sulfites were just a natural process of they were created naturally during the fermentation process. So yeah, if I'm understanding you correctly, for these certified organic wines, they're having to terminate the fermentation process early, or they're having to...
No, just not, they can't add them. They can't add them.
They can't add that. Okay.
And just so you know, if in biodynamic wine, they can, if they need to, but because the biodynamic standards allow them to add up to 100 parts per million. Okay. So, certifications have standards. So that's just so you're aware. Made with organic grapes is a claim you'll see on a lot of bottles, but that's all you know. So you don't know what is happening after the fact. So just be aware of that.
Okay. So since you mentioned that piece about made with organic grapes, because this is a new label I've started seeing, is organically grown on lots of food, which makes me a bit nervous, because it gives no information about the harvesting process and whether or not they sprayed Roundup on it to harvest it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, people bash organic a lot, but when you have that USDA, there's three levels of USDA certified organic. Okay. The 70% label. So if you make if I make a packaged good and 70% of my ingredients are organic, then the 30% don't have to be, but there are still 30% restrictions. I can't have GMOs, but I can have that conventional food that just has regular pesticides, including Roundup on it. So the 70% thing, you will see made with organic ingredients, and that actually has to be on the back of the panel. Okay. Then you have the 95% label level, and that's when you'll see the USDA certified organic label, and you can put that on the front of the back. And then you'll see 100% organic, which is very rare. Most people don't have, unless it's a single ingredient. So anytime people are saying organically farmed, or maybe they list a few organic ingredients in their ingredient list, that's all actually legal. But you have absolutely no way of knowing if it's true, because no one's checking the brand.
Okay.
And brands lie all the time.
Okay.
Sadly. Yeah. The certification is legit. We have been certified. What happens is, if we're going to make 10,000 bags of Goodonya Hydrate, and then they come and check me at my yearly certification, I have to show, this is what's in my batch. Here's my recipe. and here's my invoices that match. So that's how I learned to ask my vendors for invoices. And that's how they are checking that all of your ingredients that you're buying all year are organic. You're not just stocking your shelves before the certification.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to circle back to what kind of oils you use in cooking at Goodonya.
definitely a hot topic. Well, this is not a hot topic. I don't know why I said that. No one even knows about this. In health, though, in the health and wellness space, people do know, but no one in a restaurant world. So most restaurants are, of course, soy, canola, corn oil, vegetable oil. They're blends. They come in 5-gallon plastic tubs. Obviously, there are tons of plastic polymers are leaching into them and all the hot delivery trucks. And they are absolutely toxic in more ways than we can even imagine. And that's what most of the food's in. So you're at a fancy place paying $50 for a filet. You have canola oil on it. It's a real bummer. At Goodonya, we cook in 100% grass-fed butter. That's
Okay.
that's our cooking oil of choice. And we have all kinds of organic olive oil. We don't cook in that unless someone really begs us to, but you shouldn't heat olive oil. We cook in ghee, 100% grass-fed ghee that's actually biodynamic. And yeah, we also, and we have avocado oil that we use as well. We don't cook in that. That's in some of our recipes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty special because that's what really makes your gut feel happy after a meal. I think a big factor.
Yeah. I'm so glad to hear that you use really great oils for cooking and not the ones that are so heavy and PUFAs that really shouldn't be heated.
Yeah, they shouldn't be in our body ever really. They're processed with chemicals. Are extracted with petroleum solvents. They're grown with pesticides or GMOs. You have to wear a hazmat suit to plant genetically modified crops. I've seen photos from a friend of mine who was standing on a farm in Iowa of, I think it was soy, GMO soy, and it was orange. So it was coated. There, I was like, what is that? It was coated and it was orange. It was
Like the
disgusting.
seeds or the
Yeah,
plants? The seeds
the
were
seeds.
coated? Okay.
These are Roundup ready soy and Roundup ready corn and Roundup ready canola,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's they're genetically altered. So the pesticide is produced inside the seed with foreign DNA to get it latched on there. So when we eat that, some GMO experts are saying that DNA then latches onto our DNA, and then the pesticide actually keeps producing. And this, glyphosate has been now coming out as like it's just ruining our guts, and at 80% of our immune systems in our digestive tract. We're doing it with this one, and glyphosate has been shown on contaminating lots of organic farms. So it's like we're right before the Walking Dead, where we're really ruining the environment, and it's really gnarly what's out there, and it's a lot worse than people know. And when you see this anti-organic and this sort of stuff on Facebook, and they try to brand it as like this left-wing liberal hippie issue, those are just lobbyists for the GMO industry that are writing those articles. It's all fake news. It's just, there's so much arguing and so much fighting. So what we say at Goodonya is just go back to what nature tells us. What does nature tell us? I don't care what your scientist did a study over here that came up with this vegan diet that's supposed to be good, or it shows me this paleo diet, or the pegan diet now, which is the paleos and vegans got together. We don't understand food. We don't understand nature. And until we do, then our bodies will not truly be healthy, because we are from nature. We are designed to eat things from nature. It's as simple as that. It really is. Yeah. And then minus the people like myself who now have celiac, I can't have gluten anymore ever, even if it is, naturally fermented, and, it rises over 2 days, and all the good way that bread is made in the traditional way. I still can't have it, right? Because I have the antibody now to that protein. So people do have individual issues for sure, but I just say, well, ask nature. I don't argue with nature.
All right. You're mentioning that you have celiac. Once again, and I'm not sure which direction to walk down. If you're open to it, we could talk about how long you've had celiac, kind of how that presented before you were diagnosed. If you'd rather not, then we can talk about Goodonya's hydration packets that you mentioned and what those are, and then maybe some of the adaptogens that you use at Goodonya.
Well, we really just have the one root beer product, just, you know, so we're not like, we don't have a ton of adaptogens. We used to do some things with different brands, but we just got too busy for that stuff. So we just have our adaptogen soda. But yeah, I mean, having autoimmunity is part of Goodonya's story. That's why I am so passionate about this. I also have Hashimoto's. I also have hypoglycemia, although I have that under control now. I grew up eating sugary processed food. And I was an Olympic athlete. And so I had a tremendous amount of stress on my body for 25 years at a very high level, competing, and fueled it all with Powerade, 50 grams of sugar in a 20-ounce bottle, 5-0, right? And I ruined my gut as I put a lot of stress on my body. It's a dangerous combination. And when I retired in 2000, about 2006, everything came crashing down. I would get sick and it would last a month. I couldn't get over a sickness. It would turn into bronchitis and it would just keep escalating. I had fevers that I couldn't get down for over 2 weeks. And when you have an autoimmune condition, Hashimoto's is a very easy one to test for. So it's very common. But if you have one autoimmune condition, my body's attacking my thyroid. That doesn't, I mean, think about it. It's not just attacking the thyroid, it's attacking everywhere inside there. So the typical person can experience up to 8 different autoimmune conditions in their lifetime, because it's not like these antibodies are just laser focused on one tiny little area. So I was having a lot of other issues, and until I went back to school for holistic nutrition and severely changed the way I was eating to a real food diet, now I'm getting everything under control. And I owned restaurants. And I was good, and we were local, and organic was starting, and I had a sense that this was better. But we weren't anything like we are in Encinitas. This store is basically a test for humanity, and it's worked. So yeah, that's part of the story. And that's.
Would it be okay if we talked about your autoimmune journey?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. What questions beyond?
So were you diagnosed with Hashimoto's first or with celiac?
With Hashimoto's first, because it's such an easy test.
Now you say it's easy. However,
well, that's true.
It's hard finding a doctor that actually will test you for the right thing.
Yeah, there. I don't know if the site still exists, but it's called stopthethyroidmadness.com.
Okay.
And on there, if it still exists, you can actually print out what you need to bring into your doctor and say, can you please test for these things? And so this is sort of a hack to get around, still have your insurance pay for it. Because normally you have to go to a naturopathic doctor to get this kind of stuff done. There are other doctors now that are more integrative. And so I would encourage anyone to seek out within their network an integrative doctor. But yeah, there's like 8 or 9 different thyroid markers, and usually they run a couple, but it is a very easy box to tick. And if you have antibodies to your thyroid, then yeah, you can have Hashimoto's or Graves' disease, and if it goes hyper or hypo. And so it is an easy one, to check, because it is a very common blood test that can be done. And I would think, if you did have that, you'd have to start to go down the journey really quickly about healing your gut and thinking about a real food diet for sure. Because people have different philosophies over when to give thyroid medication, when not to. Sometimes when your antibodies are just raging out of control, they're supposed to be between 0 and 20 or something. You know, mine were like 10,000. So when you don't necessarily want to give your body more thyroid, is what I learned at that time, because your body will just see it as new tissue to attack. So you kind of got to get things under control. But you might have hypothyroidism and think, God, I feel so horrible. I really need something. But you got to kind of get things under control. And that's where the naturopathic doctor comes in. And unfortunately, you know, you're spending $200 on an appointment, and usually they want to run their own labs because your doctor didn't run enough, and they can get up in the thousands of dollars. And it's horrible. I pay $12,000 a year for health insurance for me and my wife, and we hardly use it.
Yeah.
We pay out of pocket for everything else because they're just there if I break my leg or,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of stuff.
So with your Hashimoto's, are you able to control it, or I guess have your values come down? Are you experiencing any of the symptoms that you were since you've transitioned to your diet?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been a journey. It's been like 10 years.
Okay.
So what I try to teach people a little bit is like, look, it is a journey, and stress is one of the worst things for the autoimmune journey. So you do have to, I had to change my workout routine. I had to stop running, get more into yoga, but then I went crazy with hot yoga, you know, and that can be kind of a little bit too demanding on the body. So I had to learn to do restorative things, to just calm everything down. And that was very hard, but it is a journey that you can't stress through, or you're going to make it worse. And know that if you get diagnosed, that's great, because now you're going to be able to start on a different path than one that would have led, you know, to all kinds of things. You know, maybe you still live to 70, 80, but your last 10 years are horrible. So my symptoms are all gone. But my numbers still aren't great. I still have antibodies to my thyroid, and it bugs me. So things are not perfect in my body, and I'm not a perfect eater either. You know, none of us are.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of mitigating, and doing the best I can.
Yeah. Are you on thyroid medication externally, or still relying on your thyroid to produce your thyroid hormones?
No, I am on thyroid, natural compounded thyroid medicine. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and one of the reasons for so many questions on this is because I also have Hashimoto's and have experienced many of the same things that you've had, that you're describing. I've had to change my exercise routine because it was just too much for my body. And
yeah,
the same thing with stress can definitely speak to that, as exacerbating the symptoms.
yeah, definitely. I mean, anyone out there who has any autoimmune, you have to look at your diet. I don't care what any doctor tells you. 80% of your immune system's in your digestive tract. So this is where this stuff is happening. And I had a really expensive and extensive test done by Cyrex Labs. And I learned about this off a podcast, and the lab was just starting. And so I was one of the first people to, I think, even have this autoimmunity test. And they tested every organ in my body if it had antibodies to it. Of course, the thyroid showed up, yes, as the worst. But there we saw my brain, and we saw my pancreas was out of whack. So I would have ended up, the doctor said, with type 1 diabetes, type 1, in about 10 years, if had I not changed my diet. So that's, you know, type 2 is totally different. It's blood sugar related. This is my body completely attacking the organ of my pancreas, so then it would not be able to produce insulin. Type 1 is an autoimmune condition. You can be born with it, or you can develop it. And so when that happened, I was like, whoa, this is super scary. When I did that test at my worst, almost every organ was in the red or the yellow, and then there's green, which was good. Almost every organ in my body was red or yellow. And then within a year of changing my diet, every single organ was back to green, except for my thyroid.
Okay.
So that's always been my worst one. So I saw the science. I saw the proof right there. Totally 100% psycho about gluten. Never had it. If I ate in a restaurant, I probably did have contamination. So I take a lot of digestive enzymes when I eat out to make sure I try to break that down as much as possible. But it works. It absolutely works. But then I still, my numbers are still bad for my thyroid. So it's like, why? They're down to 250. That's the lowest I've ever gotten them.
That's good. I
Yeah.
mean, mine are, the last time they were tested, they were up around 1200. So I think the lowest might have been since starting tests is 600 or so. So
yeah, I think, one of the things I did too is I completely detoxified my entire life. And now it might sound like I'm like the boy in the bubble, but honestly, this was one of the first things that sent me down the rabbit hole before food was a little video called The Story of Stuff, done by, it's not, you can YouTube it, but it's a Berkeley professor who did this. It was about kind of consumerism, and it was just devastating for the planet, right? But then she did The Story of Cosmetics. And when I learned about what is in lotion and soap and all the stuff that we put on our body, which, by the way, that's where the other part of our immune system is. It's what we breathe in, what goes on our skin. And if you think about it, of course, this is where our immune system is located, because what goes in or on our body needs the defense system. And so I do not put anything on my body, in my house, on my sheets, my laundry soap. It's all totally as natural as can be.
Yeah.
And having hypothyroidism too, I don't know if you feel this, but I'm really sensitive to chemical smells. Mm-hmm. So when someone washes their clothes in Tide, I'm just like, oh, how are you still doing that? That's just adding a toxin to your body that you don't need. If I'm going to have a toxin, it's going to be like a Reese's cup, right? Like it's going to be candy like I grew up with. It's not going to be Tide. So I just took all of that and just at least got that toxic load off of my plate, because it's easy. All of that stuff is like, oh, unscented, biodegradable laundry soap, done. Instead of this one, done.
Yeah.
So simple. Yeah. Makeup, I don't wear makeup. So that's a little bit, for some people, a little bit more challenging, but lotions are really easy. Shampoo's easy. So that's something you guys should do right now. Cleaners. In fact, making your own cleaners is way cheaper, but we're lazy and we buy the natural ones. But all of that stuff, our housekeeper, she does our floors, and I won't let her put any toxic thing on there. I'm like, just use water. It's fine. She does water and vinegar.
Yeah.
I don't even want my dogs running their little paws on it or on my bare feet. Yeah. So do that, just detoxify your life as much as you can, because you can't get away from all the toxins in our life. It's in our couch, the sofas and our clothing and the paint, and you can go crazy. And this is where you can get really stressed. So to me, it's just like about tackling one thing at a time and taking these things out of your life. And you know what, when your friends and your family make fun of you, let them, because they don't feel good, and they are on the wrong side of history. They just are, because nature knows. Nature knows. They don't know. They're just regurgitating some nonsense from a lobbyist group that posted an article to try to get them to think a certain way. And maybe I'm reading my lobbyist group's articles. That's fine. But like I said, just go back to nature and you'll have your answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the proof is ultimately in you feeling better and feeling good. So,
well, it's in a little bit of common sense too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we were the generation that you've seen the videos, or maybe you haven't, but where kids were running behind the trucks when they were shooting out DDT, like in the 50s or whenever that was.
Right.
Like there was the ice cream truck running down the street, and we're running behind it in the orange powder thinking this is us. We're not that smart as a species, because if we were, we would not be putting this stuff in our body. We just wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Chris, I don't know. I don't want to like totally bash on us, but there's a lot of other issues like social justice, and legitimately people can't afford certain things. So it's a very big issue. Totally.
Yeah, it is. Chris, this has been amazing. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about so far that you would like to mention before we wrap up? Because I definitely want to respect your time.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, one product that we make that I'm really passionate about is our hydration powder. Chronic dehydration kind of plagued me my whole life, and hydration now is becoming a big a kind of a hot topic. So I would just implore people to, the first thing we do is look for quality water. And it's not a snobby thing, but tap water is not quality water. And you can totally go on your local water board. You can look up your local water source and see what's in it, and you will be shocked. So we have a whole house filter, and that's what we shower in, but we get spring water delivered to our house. It's super economical in 5-gallon jugs. So that's just a really easy thing to do for your health, is drink really good quality spring water. Because back to the point about the soil, our food does not have the minerals in it that it used to. So when you drink tap water, or even filtered water, your RO water, even your alkaline water that you're getting at the water store, that's just filtered water and it's mechanically alkalined, or they're adding some minerals to it that are usually very low quality minerals, but you're not getting everything out of that water. You're just not. So you are depleting here you are trying to drink all this water for health, and you're actually flushing out your electrolytes and minerals. So we created a very simple hydration powder called Goodonya Hydrate, and it's with real organic lemon juice. Every other brand on the market uses lemon flavoring or grape flavoring, right? So we use real juice that's dehydrated, and then we just use real minerals, Himalayan pink salt. We use a little bit of coconut water powder for the potassium and trace minerals. And then we use a magnesium that we get out of the Irish Sea. So it's nature's minerals put into this little bag with some juice that tastes like lemonade. We use 0.01 grams of stevia out of an 8-gram tablespoon. So it's virtually undetectable, but it makes it give it a little bit of sweet. So it's not like a salty lemon water. And that's the only way, in my opinion, to do a drink, because otherwise you're going to have 20, 30, 40 grams of sugar in it. And so I do think people need to replenish their electrolytes. And I think we have the best product on the market, to be honest. But a cheap way to do it is to just do exactly what I said. Put Himalayan pink salt in your water, put 1 drop of liquid stevia, and squeeze some lemon. And there you go. I just gave you a recipe. So hydration is a big deal for immunity, detox. The minerals run thousands of processes in your body. And if this is a kind of a little passionate topic of mine, but don't forget about your parents and your grandparents. The reason why they fall a lot of times is because they're dizzy when they're older, because their blood pressure is so low, because they haven't salted anything since 1942, because they are so afraid of high hypertension, because the doctors have no idea what they're doing. Table salt is 2 minerals, sodium chloride, that's been stripped out of the sea salt, and it's toxic. It's bleached, it's mixed anti-caking agents, it's horrible. But any good quality salt has sodium chloride and like 80 other minerals attached to it that balances your blood pressure. So for them, they don't drink, our elderly, they don't drink a lot anymore anyways. And then what they do drink might be tap water, because all that fancy water is just liberal, right? And so they're depleting they're just depleting everything. So get your mom and your grandparents like a bag of hydrate, make a pitcher, put it in their fridge. It tastes like lemonade. And then you would be shocked at the reviews we get from elderly people, because you won't hear a brand talk about elderly people. You just won't. They don't care about them. But I don't know why this became a little thing for me. And it's just awesome to see them feel so much better. And they need a glass or 2 a day. That's it. Even 1 glass. Their body's so starved in minerals. It's just fun to help. It's fun to help. That's what gets me up in the morning.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So where can people find you?
Goodonyaorganic.com.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for doing what you're doing and getting all this information out there. I mean, you're saving the world by doing what you're doing. You are.
Thank you for that, Chris. That I feel that's a little bit of hyperbole. I'll take it anyway. Thank you for the compliment.
No, you should definitely take it. I mean, you could be doing something, negative with your podcast, and you're doing a positive. So it's all goes around in a positive way, I think. So thank you very much.
Thank you.